Now available in paperback and Kindle. Vampires stalk the darkness of the Eternal Night. Get your copy of Eternal Night in paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com. One of my viewers has a friend who is an aspiring writer, and they wanted to ask me some questions on her behalf. And I'm happy to answer all of the questions for the viewer in this video because I'm eager to share my passion for writing for this viewer and their friend. Now, the first question that the viewer is asking me is what jump-started my passion for my work. Now, I have been working on the SJS Direct imprint ever since 2009. However, my passion for writing started way back in about 1982 or 1983 when I saw all of the comic books in my brother's comic collection, and I wanted to go out here and make my own comics. Now, I have been a fan of comics ever since I was 4 years old, and I saw all of those books in my brother's comic collection, and I knew who most of the superheroes were before I could even read regularly. And it was comic books that taught me how to read, and reading all of the comics in my brother's collection just jump-started a passion for reading. And the Richard Scarry books that my mother and my brother bought me also sparked that passion. And what I wanted to do was make my own comics featuring a Richard Scarry character called Mayor Fox. And as I was making my own comics by writing stories on loose leaf paper and gluing them together with Elmer's glue and construction paper, I was making my own books. And that started my passion for writing. But what really started my passion for work was several years later, because I did take a break from writing from 1987 to 1990 and didn't go back to it until I wound up changing schools from Park West High School to Taft High School. And when I went to Taft High School in 1990, I started to pick up the pen again and started writing stories again. And I was just writing the John Haynes character to mimic many of the action movies I used to see, like Total Recall and RoboCop. But what eventually got started my passion for writing was back in about 1991 or 1992. My mother and I were sitting in front of the Oprah Winfrey Show, and Ice Cube was making an appearance promoting Boys in the Hood. And as they were promoting Boys in the Hood, this is what got me at about 17, 18 years old to start laying the foundation for my passion for my work, because I started to see the direction of the image of black people in media start to make a change for the worse. Now, as I was growing up in the mid-1980s, Bill Cosby had revolutionized the image of black people with The Cosby Show, and he had shown us a world of balanced, humanized black people for the first time in American media. And The Cosby Show had a major impact on me as a teenager, and I didn't really know how much of an impact that it had, but watching The Cosby Show and seeing much of the media that was presented, like many of the Spike Lee movies and Robert Townsend's film Hollywood Shuffle, this made me really appreciate the work that these brothers were doing to elevate the image of black people and present us with balanced stories of black people. So I wanted to continue building on the legacy that those brothers like Bill Cosby, Robert Townsend, and Spike Lee were presenting of black people. And I saw with the Boys in the Hood, we were taking a turn for the worse with the white media looking to take black people back down the road of stereotypes, which started with 1989's NWA's Straight Outta Compton. And I wanted to continue, again, building on that momentum that Bill Cosby had established in taking black people's image to the next level. And that's where I dedicated myself to creating positive stories about black people. And as I got older, I wanted to go out here and present not only positive stories about black people, but also present you a richer picture of black life, something we didn't get in mainstream media, showing you stories about Black life that aren't published by traditional publishers. And that's one of the things that led to me looking to go out here and build the SJS Direct imprint. I wanted to go out here and publish those stories because I originally tried, when I wrote the first John Haynes book, The Changing Soul, to go out here and try to sell that book to trade publishers, and they didn't even want to pick it up. And I also did a book called The Cassandra Cookbook, which was a story about two Black-owned businesses in making a deal in a romance novel, and I couldn't get any agents or publishers to pick it up. So what I did was look to start my own publishing imprint to go out here and present those stories of Black people, and that's what started me on my journey into becoming a serious writer. And the viewer asks another question that segues into this one. How long did it take me to get where I am now? And it took me, I would say, about 30 years to get where I am now. I mean, when I first started writing at 9 years old, I wasn't that great. And when I was 17, I was just out here not just doing stuff and not really knowing what I was doing. So as I was coming out of high school and coming into college, I just kept writing every day. And as I was writing and learning what to write in my stories on loose leaf paper, I was continuing to learn skills, and my father saw me, and for my 18th birthday, he bought me a Brother word processor that helped me to be able to type out stuff instead of trying to write it freehand. And I was really grateful for my father buying me that word processor back in 1992, because that was the word processor that basically started me on my road to becoming a serious writer, and also took me down the road to have a device to go out here and write my term papers when I was attending college. And then later on, after I attended college, this is the word processor I used to write the first John Haynes book and also write the first ISIS book. I mean, that word processor, again, was one of those devices that, again, really helped me to get where I'm going. And I also was able to get further down that road after writing the first ISIS when I got my job at AmeriCorps Vista with the Strive East Harlem Employment Service. And while I was there, I learned a lot more about writing that helped me hone my craft by working at the side of the fund development department and learning more about grant writing and proposal writing. And my supervisor helped me out with a lot of the writing as related to sentence structure and things like that. So I got a lot of help in developing my craft, working at Strive and also doing articles there. And after I left AmeriCorps Vista, I then again did some articles for a paper called The Visionary News of Mauritania, and that helped me as well. But the biggest thing that helped me outside of Strive and my father giving me that word processor was after I published 2002's ISIS, when my sister gave me a Sid Field screenplay. And when she gave me that book, it basically helped transform my writing. And it helped transform my writing because it helped me to learn about the structures of writing, and it also learned to help me learn techniques that would help me improve my craft. So that's part of my journey. Again, was learning about screenwriting, and learning about screenwriting taught me a lot of different things about writing. It taught me how to use fewer words to tell a much richer story, and it taught me about the 3-act paradigm, and it taught me about how characters are supposed to change over the course of a story, not to mention how structures work in terms of stories. Because after reading Sid Field's screenplay in 2003, that's what helped me to be able to write books like The Cassandra Cookbook in 2003 to 2004, and it also helped me to be able to write one of what I believe to be my best books, The Temptation of John Haynes. And that's where it started the foundations for becoming a far better writer and improving my craft. And as I was learning about writing better stories, I also did a screenplay called All About Marilyn. And as I was out here on this journey, I then started to get
more serious about publishing after I got my job at the City College of New York, because I had a lot of these scripts and I wanted to go out here and publish them. And while I was running into resistance from trade publishers, and I didn't know why I was running into resistance, and it really was because they didn't like to see positive stories about black people, or to see certain narratives presented like positive images of black men, black manhood, and black masculinity, or to see black on black love. I started going out here looking to go out here and start publishing my books again. And I started again with the same print-on-demand company, virtualbookworm.com. I'm really grateful for them giving me the break on Isis and the Cassandra cookbook. And they helped me get my books out here in the beginning. But when I was looking to publish All About Marilyn, which was a screenplay, that's when I started to want to learn my own techniques as related to publishing. And I learned about Lightning Source, and I learned about trying to get my books distributed. And that's when I started to get serious about publishing. And that's when I went from working with print-on-demand publishers or print-on-demand platforms like Lulu over to creating SJS Direct. And when I created SJS Direct, I wanted to create a publishing imprint that would create a platform for positive stories about the black experience. And I wanted to start by being able to publish my own book, because the formatting for All About Marilyn was so unique that I needed to do special formatting for it. And I worked tirelessly on that book, which launched in 2010 and was the first SJS Direct book. And from there, I have been continuing to follow the Most High, who told me to keep going after I lost my job. So I've been on this journey for over 30 years. And in that 30 years plus, I have gone on to, as I was running the SJS Direct imprint, go on to meet a goal I had set when I published the first Isis back in 2002, in going out here and starting the Isis series, not to mention publishing over 80 books on the SJS Direct imprint, including books in the Isis series, which is my own take on the Egyptian and Nubian gods, the Esteem series, which is about a former demon who is out here looking to have a relationship with God, the John Haynes series, which is a supernatural series which is about a man taking on the devil. And I also was able to go out here and explore different aspects of black life, like the struggles of black actresses in Hollywood. And I was able to go out here and write stories about that weren't really told, like the story of a black sorority with the Thetas. And I was also able to go out here and write a vampire novel, something I never thought I would do in my life, with Eternal Night. And I was able to write about stories that weren't being told, like I thought, about the mainstream media, about the goth subculture, a subculture I knew about ever since I was a teenager. And I wanted to put a positive light on it and show the black people that were a part of it, because the mainstream media never showed you any black people in the goth scene. So with the Spinsterella book in 2015, the Spellbound book in 2016, and Legendary Mad Matilda book in 2018, I was able to write a story about black goths. And right now with the SJS Direct imprint, I'm out here producing books regularly every year, and I'm out here publishing my books every year. And again, it took me 30 plus years to get here, because back in the day, I didn't have the money or the education or the resources I have now. So I have been working at this for over 30 years, and it's all been with my passion, again, continuing to persist in the face of discouragements, like some family members not supporting some of my work, some people out here complaining about me hand drawing book covers, people complaining about skin tone debates. I have been out here persevering in the face of everything, looking to obey the Lord who told me to keep going after I lost my job, and continuing to persevere in the face of all of the challenges that I face as related to being a publisher, like slow sales on certain books that I had a love for. I mean, I had books like Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess or John Haynes Godbreaker. Sometimes I have books that I put my heart into and the book winds up not selling, but I still go out here and do this because I want to obey God and continue to do the work that means a lot to me, because every person who reads an SJS Direct book, a lot of times people get their lives transformed by my fiction and a lot of my nonfiction, because I had a friend on MySpace who was a best-selling author friend, and she had suggested to me to start doing nonfiction, and that's when I started doing the Stop Simping books and the men's issues books and the men's issues blogs on my platform. And she was a major help to me in building my career, and I'm very grateful for that author helping me out. And that's something that I'm really grateful for, having that help. And again, God has always put good people in front of me to help me further build my writing career, and that's why I want to make this video to help out this aspiring writer the way I have been helped throughout my career. I mean, I've had people donate money to pay for book covers. A sister did that, and I was grateful for it. Another sister donated money that helped me to make the first John Haynes comic, and I'm really grateful for all the help I've gotten on this journey building SJS Direct. And if I can help out another author to get their work to the next level, I'm grateful to do it here. Now, this friend also asks, how do you know if your work is good enough? Well, you just have to believe in yourself, because sometimes you be thinking that a story is bad, but sometimes it's a great story. I mean, you just have to believe in your story and know that it's good. I mean, there are stories that I did, like Esteem No Good Deed. I thought that was a terrible story. And John Haynes, A Conversation with Death, I thought that was a mediocre story. But both of those stories went on to become the biggest hits on SJS Direct. Esteem No Good Deed went on to get 3,000 downloads on Smashwords and Amazon.com. And John Haynes, A Conversation with Death, which was the book that jump-started the John Haynes series, was one of the biggest hits on SJS Direct. And sometimes you'll sit there and think a story isn't good enough, but it'll be a great story for readers. And I had the same thing happen with the Black sorority novel, The Thetas. I wrote that book really quickly in 2012, and I published it in 2013, and I didn't think it was that great of a book, but that book turned out to gain, again, another big hit for SJS Direct, getting over 1,000 downloads, and is considered to be one of the best reviewed books on SJS Direct, because sometimes you'll think a story isn't that great, but it'll have a great impact on people, and it will show people that your writing is really great, but you just have to believe in yourself. Whether a book does well in sales or not, you have to know in your heart that a book is good, and that's something I have learned as related to developing my story sense, that there's a point where I have to say, okay, this story is solid, and just go on, publish it so I can move on to another story. Sometimes you'll do a story, and again, you won't believe in that story, but it will be a solid story. And other times you'll have a story where you'll just instinctively know that this story is solid. I mean, when I was writing The Temptation of John Haynes, or when I was writing Spellbound, I just knew from first page to last it was solid and solidly structured. Same thing for the story Isis Wrath of the Cyber Goddess. I just knew that story was solid. Same thing with Isis the Beauty Myth. I mean, there are stories that you know that are good, and then when you have the doubts as related to a story, sometimes you just have to go out here and share it with others, and they'll show you how solid it is. And it just depends on the story. Sometimes you can see the story coming together, and it's the nuances are there, but it's all about you believing in yourself, trusting in God, and trusting in yourself to know that you've put your best work forward, and your best work is going to shine when you put it out here. So this is something that you have to, again, go out here and work on. And the other thing you have to work on as you're going out here and looking to share your work with others is you're going to have to develop a thick skin. When it comes to the world of writing and publishing, you've got to develop a very thick skin. You're going to have to deal with people who don't like your work, and you can't take it personal. Yes, this person doesn't like the work you've produced, but you've got to go out here and just say, okay, maybe that person doesn't like my work, but it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And in some cases, you just have to take constructive criticism, because sometimes people, when they're out here criticizing your work, they want to see you improve and they want to see you do better. This is one of the things that has me very passionate about doing things like comic book review videos, because I want to see writers do better. And because I want to see another writer do better, what I want to do is point out some of the flaws so that they can improve them next time. Now, some comic pros, they will be grateful for the feedback because they know that their work isn't perfect, and they'll sit there and want to improve, whereas others will get defensive. But you can't get defensive, because if you get defensive, you're not going to be able to improve in your craft, and you're not going to be able to become a better writer. So you've got to develop a thick skin when you're out here writing. You've got to develop a thick skin and be able to take criticism, because many of your critics, they have no dogs in the race as related to your story. They just have read your story objectively, and they only can go by what you present in that story. And if something is wrong, a person who cares will let you know. A person who wants to see you do better will let you know. A person who is passionate about writing will let you know. And they'll let you know so that they can help you become better at what you're doing. Now, this segues into the final question that the viewer has, and that is, how do you structure your subject matters? Well, I structure my subject matter in anything that I do, like fiction or nonfiction, by going out here and following the 3-act paradigm that is presented in Syd Field's screenplay. Now, in Syd Field's screenplay, he wants to answer 3 critical questions before the story starts, and that is, who is the main character, what do they want, and why should we care? And for nonfiction, I use the same paradigm to ask, what is the problem? What is keeping people from being able to improve themselves, and why? And what's the solution? So I put my own take on those 3 critical questions for nonfiction, and that's how I start laying the foundation for the structures of my fiction or my nonfiction, by answering those 3 critical questions. And then I follow a structure of doing an introduction, which is the first chapter, and establishing the main story, and in nonfiction, establishing the problem. Then I go on, and after showcasing the problem in the first 10 to 15 pages, I then go into leading the action up to the first plot point. And then after I do the first plot point, which is a twist in the action, what I do is go into the second act. And then after the second act, I go into the second plot point. And then we go into the third act, which is the climax, which is the peak of the story, and the conclusion. And for nonfiction, after I introduce the problem, what I do is go out here and then start making my arguments for what is causing the problem and what is a major part of the problem. And then I go into, after I present all of the issues leading up to the problem, I then present the solution. That's what I do for books like Stop Simpin', Misadventures of Captain Save-'em, The Man Crisis, and The Woman Crisis. I always go out here, introduce the problem, what's causing the problem, what are the symptoms of the problem, and what eventually is the solution for the problem. So I structure my work with that whole model that I got from the 3-act paradigm from Syd Field's screenplay, and I also use and adopt the techniques of trying to use the fewest economy of words, something I learned from screenwriting, to make my prose and paragraphs very short so that the reader can go out here and be quickly immersed in the book, and go out here and want to be able to immerse the reader in the book so that they can gain perspective. That's another part of my writing style. When I'm writing fiction, I use a revolving first-person perspective for my writing of my fiction stories, like Isis series, Esteem series books, John Haynes series books, and Spinsterella trilogy books, and books like Eternal Night. And I do that so that you can get a revolving perspective, so you can get an understanding of all of the contrasting views, and all of the contrasting views can give you a balanced picture of the action going on, and that balanced picture can give you some insight into the thoughts and motivations of the characters and lead to you getting an understanding of what action is going on and see the action from everybody's perspective. That's what I usually do when I'm writing fiction. But when I write nonfiction, I write it from a third-person perspective. Same thing for screenplays and same thing for comic books, because we need to have a third-person perspective so that the artist, when I'm doing comics, can have a picture of what the images and the action are like, and for the screenplay, so that the director can have a sense of what the camera's like and the shots are to use, and for nonfiction, so you can get a core understanding of the thesis. This is the techniques that I use for my writing for nonfiction. But for fiction, I again use a revolving first-person perspective for most of my novels. The only one that isn't done in a revolving first person is the Thedas. That's the only one where I do the whole story from one person's viewpoint, which is the Colleen Anderson character. And I oftentimes use different techniques for writing so that I can go out here and give people different perspectives of storytelling. And I learned all of these techniques over the course of the last 30 years. And I learned them, again, from learning, just reading on my own, networking with people like the best-selling author friend that I had, and going out here and just watching different videos about writing and studying different things about writing, and going out here and reading lots of different books, different blogs, different websites. One of the key things to, and comic books, one of the key things to being a great writer is being a great reader. So you have to read a lot to become a writer who can go out here and structure great stories. And you have to go out here and do lots of research, like I do for many of my stories. I mean, for me to write the book Spinsterella in 2015, I watched over 1,000 hours of videos from goth YouTubers, and for Spellbound, the sequel to Spinsterella, I watched even more and learned more about the subculture and the music. And as I did my research, I learned a lot about the goth subculture. And when I write nonfiction like The Man Crisis, I watched not only a lot of YouTube videos, but I also did research on statistics regarding the issues men have. So in order for me to go out here and write a book, I do a lot of research, because research is the foundation for your writing before you put fingers to the keyboard to establish the structure for your 3-act paradigm of your story. Because the more research you have, the more facts you have in your head, and you can write what you know. Because one of the things that writers can do is they can only write what they know. And the more you learn, the more you can write about a subject. And the more you can learn, the more you do research, the more you can put more details into your story. And those details can go out here and be ones that can catch the attention of readers. That's what a good writer does. They do their research. And oftentimes I do lots of research for both fiction and nonfiction to make sure that every detail is there, so that when the readers come to me, they can say that the story is solid and really tells the truth about a subject. And I got that with a review that I got for Spellbound, where I had actual goths coming to me and saying, hey, you got this right. And I had a lot of people who read Spinsterella Trilogy tell me that about the whole biracial aspect I got right. And the same thing for the Thedas, where I had women telling me they were surprised a man could write women very well. Well, I could write that story because I had sisters and a mother. I knew a lot of women, and I had good relationships with women, so I could write about women. And that came from my personal experience and my research. So being a writer is a lot of work, and it's very passionate work that you can do. But one of the drawbacks of it is it takes a lot of time, and you have to sacrifice that time, but it doesn't feel like a sacrifice when you have passion for your work. And I would also advise the viewer's friend not to quit their day job to become a writer. No, if you have a day job, please keep your day job, because these books don't make a lot of money, and it's going to be a long time before you go out here and have a best-selling book, which really isn't that much. I just learned that it's only a couple thousand copies to get to the bestseller list. And it's a goal I've had ever since I was a little boy, to be a best-selling author, and I'm still working towards that goal. But the whole thing is, if you're a writer, you're writing because you love writing, you have a passion for writing, but as you have that passion for writing, please have a passion for learning, because with writing, you never stop learning, and I haven't stopped learning. Even though I have a college degree in business, I'm looking to learn every day. I mean, I see myself no different than a kid who aspires to be a chef. That was one of the things I wanted to do. And with being a chef, you're constantly learning different techniques in cooking, and you have to have an open mind. So it's just like being a chef, you have to have an open mind to learning about different flavor profiles, different tastes, and you have to go out here and look to be open in order to learn more about the craft of writing. You have to be open to learning about writing, and keep yourself open and have a thick skin to take constructive criticism, because the only way you're going to grow in your skills as a writer is to go out here and be open to taking criticism, open to learning more, and continuing to learn. And at 50 years old, I'm still learning. I mean, just because I've written 8 novels and over 80 books in different genres, I'm still open to learning about different walks of life to tell those kind of stories. I mean, that's what I was doing at 41 years old with Spinsterella. I was learning more about the goth scene, and I was learning so much, and again, about the music, which is the foundation of the subculture. Again, I had to keep learning, and you have to keep learning, because the more you know, the better you'll be able to write about your subjects. And there's a lot to love about writing, and you have to have that love to sit in front of that keyboard like I do sometimes, all the way up to about 1 o'clock in the morning out here writing. You have to have a love for writing. And if you aspire to be a writer, understand that, yes, this is your passion and your love, but you have to have discipline in order to finish anything. I mean, I had to have discipline to continue finishing many of my stories. I mean, I started Changing Soul back in 1994, and I didn't finish it until 2000, but I wanted to finish. And the thing that you have to do is dedicate yourself to finishing, because once you finish one story, you can go on to others. And that's one thing you have to do, is face a fear of finishing. That was something I had to face in 1999, and I finished when I did the first John Haynes book that I still won't publish because it's crap. But the whole thing is, once I finished that story, I was able to move on to ISIS. And as you move on, you start to improve with each book. Your first book is not going to be that great, I'll tell you that much. But as you go on, your skills are going to get better, you're going to get sharper, you're going to be a much better writer, and you're going to improve in your craft. And it can only start when you finish one story and go to the next, and you'll notice a marked difference in how much better your writing has become. And that was something that was told to me by viewers, and they told me, oh, The Eternal Night is way better than what you wrote with The Temptation of John Haynes. And I was shocked to hear that. I mean, one of the viewers told me they thought Eternal Night was the best book I had written so far. But it just shows what happens when you hone your skills and your technique. And you have to hang in there with this whole business of writing. Again, this is not something you're going to do overnight. It takes time for you to develop your skills. And you can become a great writer, but you've got to put the time and passion into it overall. Now, for this viewer, I want to suggest that they pick up 2 books that have been a great help to me for writing, and that is Sid Field's screenplay, which you can get on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format, and Robert McKee's story, which was also a great help to me in improving my technique and my craft. And I would also like to tell them to get Strunk and White's The Elements of Writing, which my boss at AmeriCorps Vista got me. And I also want to talk about getting the English Handbook, and so you can learn about sentence structure and technique. I have all of these books in my personal collection, and I reference those books along with the entire SJS Direct Universe continuity regularly. But these books are a great tool for me as related to helping me improve my writing, and I'll put links to those books in the description box for not only this viewer and their friend, but everybody else out here so that they can help improve their writing. And if you want to pick up some of the books on the SJS Direct imprint to see how far I have grown as a writer in my passion for writing, you can pick up those books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, Spellbound, Spinsterella, the legendary Mad Matilda, and you can pick up and many of those other books, like A Recipe for Success, which is the Cassandra Cookbook, the Thetas, my vampire novel, Eternal Night. You can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find all those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you'd like to see me make more videos about writing like this viewer did, you can drop a donation to the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to help me be able to make my next full comic, which is I want to do one about Isis, the goddess next door, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today.
Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess, featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online booksellers everywhere today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.